Hello and welcome everyone to this episode of Afternoon Cake series at EIT Health Alumni and special RIS Alumni edition. Today we have a great honor to host Bertalan Meskó, the Medical Futurist, in our show. And some of you might not know him. He has been studying at Bertalan University in the past, but for more than a decade, he's known for being medical futurist. He's publishing a lot in all the social media channels. His books have reached the top sellers at Amazon and other channels. And I know personally that I've been subscribing to his frequent newsletter to get all the exciting news from digital health. So Bertalan, welcome to the Cake episode.
Thank you, Timo, for the nice introduction, and thank you so much for having me on the show.
Maybe to get it started, I think you have quite interesting career that I think most of the people who, when they go to med school, they have decided that most likely the rest of the life they are practicing clinicians. But we know that you made a different choice, that you became a medical doctor and then you did even a PhD on the top, but you haven't really practiced in a clinical setting, but you have instead educating hundreds and thousands, if not millions, of medical professionals and people interested in health in the last decade. So how come, what happened to you 10 years ago that you didn't become a doctor?
Absolutely. I was 6 years old when I got a book from my mother about the scientific method made for kids. And I fell in love with it. I fell in love with the scientific method itself. So from the age of 6, I quite clearly knew that I would like to dedicate my life to doing research. But I wanted to do it in life sciences. So I went to medical school for the sole purpose of becoming a medical professional so I can become a life science researcher while being a physician. I never intended to practice medicine. And I think I was fine with that throughout the whole process. And by the time I didn't even finish medical school, I was already working in a lab on my later PhD thesis. And my PhD was in clinical genomics. But as soon as I finished my PhD, thus actually reaching my childhood dream, I felt that something was missing from my life. And that was my love for technologies. And it was quite clear to me then that I wouldn't dedicate the rest of my life to doing research in genomics, but I would switch to futuristic studies, which is quite a big switch for anyone in a scientific career, switching from life sciences to social sciences. And for the last 13 years, I've been the medical futurist, and all my professional life, I've been doing research about the near future of medicine and healthcare with a special emphasis on the role artificial intelligence and digital health technologies will play in those futures.
Yeah, this is super exciting. And I think also it was timed very maybe spot on that I think it was just the rise of the first smartphones and those technologies. I know that you have been reviewing a lot of gadgets when I have been reading your newsletters that I think every piece of medical technology there is that I know that you have been doing experiments on yourself as well.
It has been quite an important part of my professional life, not just to write about technologies, but to see them in action and use them myself for two major purposes mainly. One is that if you use these digital health technologies, then you immediately start understanding what kind of challenges patients and physicians go through when they use these technologies. Mm-hmm. And the second is to have a clear picture about where these technological trends are going. So writing about a portable ultrasound device is one thing, but using a portable ultrasound device connected to your smartphone that has artificial intelligence guidance built in, so you don't have to be even a professional to do an examination on someone because the AI system guides you through it. I guess it means you meet science fiction. Meeting science fiction is quite an amazing feeling. You have to do these things to be able to make better predictions about the near future. That's why I'm so excited about testing. We're having tested about 130 digital health gadgets and technologies so far. And the number is, I guess, still increasing.
Yeah, I think especially now when they are pumped up. But this is super exciting, like 130. Like I think some people can imagine that maybe they have had like one or two watches or changing phone every some years, but like 130, that's that's amazing amount.
I'm looking
But
on my right. There is a big bookshelf, and in each box I have a different set of gadgets. Like I have one box with like 15 gadgets just about ECG, one about eye care, one about skincare, food sensors, one about fitness trackers, smartwatches, blood pressure devices, and so on. So it's not normal testing that many devices. Not even normal, because you do it, about your own health management. So the amount of data I have come across in my own health is just not normal. And even with my primary care physician, we find it quite hard to get something meaningful out of that huge bunch of data. But what I hear from that is that I come across so many legal, ethical, privacy challenges. And also I feel like the health advantages of using such technologies, that maybe by testing that many devices, I'm in a better position to depict a future vision about healthcare and medicine that most patients and physicians would find desirable.
yeah, I mean that's definitely very valuable, because like I think I mean you know there are so many apps even out there, not only medical field, but only few make it success. And I think especially in medical field, it's not about the idea or the let's say innovation per se, but how to get those things adopted. I think that's one of the biggest challenges. And I think you have seen how maybe even like some secret sources, how some of founders or innovators have managed to overcome this adaptation issue in the field of medicine, which has such long, many centuries, and if not millennia of tradition still deeply rooted in.
This is one of the biggest issues that we face in healthcare technology today. I think patients adopt these technologies at an incredibly fast pace. They are the most motivated players in this ecosystem, because it's about their own health and disease management. And if now, seeing that the ivory tower has been breaking down for about 15 years, if now they can reach out to such technologies, they will do that. Even if they don't know how to use it, or they come across a bunch of data they cannot use, or they feel that they are doomed in this amount of information. But still, they are the most motivated players. So when I talk about adoption, I always talk about how healthcare professionals could adopt these technologies. And I always emphasize the importance of saying out loud that digital health is a cultural transformation. I know we always talk about technologies, but primarily it's a cultural transformation. It was initiated by technologies, but it's not driven by them. By this I mean that it's much more important how these technologies induce a new kind of eco-level partnership between patients and their caregivers, instead of the old traditional hierarchy, then which smartwatch or health sensor comes out next year. And in this sense, if anyone anyone wants to keep on focusing on finding the right technologies for healthcare professionals, so maybe they can adopt these in a faster way, I don't think that they're going to succeed. I think what we have to focus on is embracing the cultural components of this transformation, and helping physicians understand that it's fine to feel that they want to reject certain technologies, or that they might feel that they could be replaced by automation. It's fine to have these feelings. Sometimes it's fine to overhype the importance of a technology, because it gives them so much hope that things could get better. So it's fine to go through these emotions. And if you focus on how to help them go through these changes and emotions, then I think finding the right technologies for that purpose is a much easier task than the first one.
Yeah, that's I think, but maybe I know that your Medical Futurist Institute is targeting both those patients that you mentioned, that to take that power to themselves, as well as medical professionals. Do you see like who has, like, in order to really like scale things up, who has the like more important role, that the patients that are well educated and ask those, let's say, maybe more uncomfortable questions from their doctors, who would then look up like, hey, what the patient was talking about, what is this device that I've never heard about before? Or it's more like that we should educate those medical professionals who can suggest those technologies for their patients. That where is this balance, in your opinion?
I think there is a communication gap between the two players. That there are many patients today who would love to ask technological questions to their doctors, but they have always been discouraged by their medical professionals not to do so. Please don't do searches on Google for your symptoms. Don't use apps, don't use health sensors, because those physicians maybe don't know enough about these technologies to be able to accurately provide the right suggestions. And the gap is also between those patients who would love to ask such questions and those professionals who might be able to help, but they don't know how to encourage their patients to ask such questions. So I think primarily this is a communication gap that would be quite easy to fill in. We did a project before, we called it Ask Me About Digital, which was just a badge we gave out for free to hundreds of physicians worldwide. They could put this badge on their door, primary care physicians. They could put this badge on their door, which meant that please ask me about digital. So they encouraged their patients, even before the patients came into the room, to feel free to ask such questions about, health sensors, smartphone apps, and so on, because I'm a physician who can help you with that. It was a very simple thing of bridging the gap between the needs of patients who would love to use technologies but don't know how, and healthcare professionals who might be able to help them but don't know how to encourage patients to ask such questions. But just to set things straight, I just want to mention that I have two arms. In the Medical Futurist arm, I have a dedicated team of 14 people, and on medicalfuturist.com and all its social media channels, we do communicate towards about 1 million patients and healthcare professionals, even policymakers and developers worldwide. We are trying to provide the context around the digital health transformation. On my other arm, at the Medical Futurist Institute, we do the same essentially, but through peer-reviewed research. And those studies, of course, are primarily aimed at scientists, researchers, and healthcare professionals.
Yeah, that sounds like it's two different languages, that the scientific language and then the layman's language to reach different masses. But maybe like as you founded that or the Medical Futurist activities quite a while ago, and you have the experience of more than a decade of getting and let's say starting a healthcare education or communication gap building activity, especially considering it happens in Europe, which has like this long cultural traditions and things. Do you have any good like learning points that you have learned from that 10 years journey of building the team from being I think you were solo founder, being a solo founder, to building the team of, you mentioned 14 people, that some good tips for these listeners of our podcast who are also like just like recent graduates from medical school and maybe have this courage to do the first steps in support of the EIT Health programs, to start their team and to have that journey. That what would be maybe like 3 key words of wisdom for those embarking that journey?
It's such a hard question for me because I'm not sure if I've done anything in the right way over the last decade or so. What I know for sure is that I get the feedback sometimes based on my online presence that I do an amazing job myself. And then I tell them it's 14 people supporting me every single day. It's not my job, it's our job. And it's a team effort. And while it might look like it's just me being out there because my face is on these communication snippets we do every day, the way that I analyze digital health and AI news, my face is always there. But everything we do is only possible because I have a dedicated team. So the first hard decision for me was back then in I'm trying to find the right year for that, 2012 maybe 2013, when I opened up myself and my online presence to at least have one team member. And he's a CEO of a great biotech company these days, by the way, but that's how we started our or work together. I'm talking about Szabolcs Nagy. He's the CEO of Turbine these days, and we started building or putting what I had in mind before as the Medical Futurist brand onto a professional ground. That let's see what kind of people we are talking to every day, how to use either each social media channel in a different way, how to get graphics and videos, and one by one we started expanding the team. But I truly believe in the power of transparency. Plus, being Hungarian helps because we are quite direct with each other. We tell what we think, and I think I'm very strong in that I can transparently describe what I have in mind and what I need from the other team members, and at the same time what I can deliver to that. And flexibility also helps. So I just don't believe in the idea, and maybe now 99% of the followers will just say that I'm silly. I don't believe in the idea that we have to sit in a building built with bricks in the same office room all the time. I don't believe in office hours neither. I believe in tasks and projects and capabilities, and that's how the whole team has been working on. We've never sat in the same room. Of course, we meet from time to time, but we don't sit in from 8 to 4 or 9 to 5 in the same room. We work when we have a work to do, when we have a task to fulfill, and everybody knows what their job is exactly, and we are constantly calibrating not just how everyone's job is described, but also how we can work together even more efficiently. So while it's a team of 14, to me it looks much bigger than we were just 2, but I guess it will be the same when we will be 30, looking back when we were just 14. What matters to me is that the whole process is about calibration. And if I can calibrate, if I can fine tune what we do every day, if I just make one tiny improvement day by day, then at the end of the year, I feel fine for making progress in improving and building the team.
Yeah, I think that's like this fine tuning day by day. That also sounds like, the compound interest, that it looks small, but if the overnight success is always like 10 years of hard work, actually, that what you have to do. But this is I think very inspiring for our listeners, especially now when remote work as such has officially, thanks to COVID-19, become a thing, where people were like enforced to not just that they would like to, but due to the different restrictions in many countries, that people had to try it out, and it seems that it works, because also like the tech giants, they still allow Google, Facebook, and others to dial in the thousands, if not hundreds and thousands of team members they have.
I think it also applies to how telemedicine has been becoming the new norm. And, because of the pandemic last year, there was a very quick technological adoption from physicians and patients worldwide, because there was no other way of receiving or delivering care. So they adopted technologies very fast, but the cultural transformation is the one now that's lagging behind. In practice, what it means is that nobody has educated or taught physicians how to build a relationship based on trust, empathy, and compassion through a telemedical service. That's just not part of the medical curriculum. We checked, there are about 10 courses worldwide at medical schools, including the one we teach at Semmelweis Medical School in Budapest, where we teach such skills and knowledge and approach, but that should be a part of the everyday curriculum worldwide, and it's still not. I think the same applies here, that while I do think that it's more efficient to have these remote teams and work through virtual channels, but it's a learning process, a learning curve, even for me, finding out when it's the right time to meet in person, at least for once a month. But that's still very important. But otherwise, it's just good enough to keep on working virtually. Plus, I have never dedicated as many efforts to improving the mental health of my team than in the last year or so. I just, maybe I was not sensitive enough to that topic, but I never really dedicated enough efforts to that topic. Now I very much do, because that has become like the absolute priority in improving the well-being of your team, to take care of their mental health. And I try to do that through different ways, but what matters is that we now dedicate enough efforts to that, and and we take care of each other. So that's a learning curve for all of us. I just say that it's worth diving into this and trying this model, this hybrid model, than sticking to the old traditional model.
Well, that sounds very exciting, and that's maybe also like that. The people, maybe even like EIT Health can take these notes, that when they're planning the next international schools for the master students and PhD students, that how to actually handle that mental health of clinical practitioners, and maybe even like early startup founders in this gloomy European winter months, and a bit remote settings where you can't give a hug, but you just have a Zoom instead. But moving on to maybe that topic, I know that some our listeners today that are listening to our podcast maybe already have those first team members, and now are like going into this deep, gloomy European winter. You mentioned this mental health, and that there are some tricks that you have been using yourself and your team. Maybe is there some kind of like good technologies that you can also recommend? I don't know, there are like plenty of apps, but maybe what would be good for European early stage startup founder or medical professional who just graduated and trying to find a way to address that mental health issue on a personal note, some kind of like a cool tech gadget or program that you have seen lately and working wonders?
I'm certain about two things here. One is that a method might work for me. That doesn't matter. That doesn't mean that it will work for others. And the second is that I cannot improve my mental health with technologies. I mean, it might work for others using apps like Headspace and Calm. I tried those before. Those apps did contribute to improving my mental health, but in general, what I needed to improve my own mental health during these quite changing times is a digital detox. So what I do is my face is out there 24 hours a day, every single day on all our channels, and I'm in constant contact with many of our followers, and I love doing that and I enjoy doing that, but it's a struggle. And what I do is I simply don't work between Friday evening and Monday morning. It doesn't matter. I mean, I said digital detox. That's not entirely true, because some of my hobbies take place online. So I still use my computer at home, but I don't work. And before the pandemic, I felt that my work had always been more important than myself. I'm not sure if you understand what I'm trying to say here, because you can only understand if you had this idea in your life before, that your work, what you do, is simply more important than you personally in the world. And now, of course, I realize that it's vice versa, and I'm more important than my work. But I love doing what I do, and I love working more and more. I just don't feel that I should stop. So it has been a learning curve for me. It has been a learning curve about finding the right balance between when to stop working and when to enjoy other things, other hobbies, for example, activities. But those like you and I, who have been working digitally and virtually for many years, even before the pandemic, we don't have office hours. So it's not that I can ever my work never ends. I stop working. And if you don't do this proactively, that you just tell yourself that, okay, now at this point I stop working because I decide so, then it's a never ending story. It's just I just stop working for a minute and for a few hours, and then I will jump back into it. But it never ends. You are always in a stressful anti-mental health cycle where you can never find inner peace. And I was struggling to find inner peace, while now I understand why I couldn't do it. You cannot reach mindfulness while everything is more important, especially tasks and success and everything else than yourself and how you feel that day. I'm not saying I'm becoming a monk. I'm not. I still enjoy my work very much, and I work a lot, but I dedicate a lot of efforts and a lot of time to my mental health. Thus, I'm trying to do the same with my team members. That's why I said in the first point that I don't know whether these methods would work for others, but that's why I not even trying to steal methods I see from other people, because that might not even work for me. What I do is I talk a lot with my team members. We talk a lot about how they feel, how they are doing, not just about the tasks. Of course, work is important, so we have to do everything we set. But what helps me is planning. I might even say that I have a fetish for planning. I plan ahead for days, for weeks, for a year at least. And the more time I spend planning things and planning tasks, the more comfortable I feel around myself. And I did this even before the pandemic. And of course, during the pandemic, the things were changing so fast that it didn't even make sense to plan ahead at all. But I realized that, but if I still plan ahead, if I still try to plan ahead, I simply feel better. So that worked for me. But I had to fine tune my methods and keep on looking for something that helps until I find a few that, like a weaponry, like an army of weapons I can use every day to still fight against mental health issues and try to enjoy life as much as possible, while, again, as I mentioned, I enjoy working and I want to work as much as I can.
That sounds like actually like self-prescribing yourself like a healthy digital diet, that, like in a nutrition, you should have your vegetables and you should have like, this and that food groups, that also like in a digital life, you have that calendar space for those working hours. And then you have like calendar space for doing some other things as well, that makes it a nice healthy diet in the end.
Something like that. And I don't feel like when I play Lego and we have Star Wars Legos, of course, with my 4.5 years old daughter on Saturday, I don't feel like I should share that image with others on Instagram. I mean, it would make sense because I build a brand and an image, but I just feel like it would be like stealing a private moment out of my life, which I enjoy so much. So that's how I try to differentiate between my work hours, which again is many, and between the hours I spend in whatever activities I enjoy doing.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I hope also some other founders can try this out and exactly like see if that works for them, or there is, like it's like with the food diets, like, every person is a bit different and they have to calibrate, as you said before, in order to figure out what works.
May I mention just one
particular individual
final method that I have a rule I use about digital channels and sharing information online, is that if I wanted to have like the question is, shall I share this image, this photo of my private life on my Instagram profile just for keep on building my brand or image? The question I ask myself is, would I like to have these few thousand or tens of thousands of people in my room seeing this image right now? Because if so, then of course, let's share that, because that's what those social media channels are for. But if not, then maybe it's the answer to the question that let's not do that. Let's not share this image, because I don't want that many people to be part of this private experience. That's how that's the rule I use to differentiate between these two words, digital and analog.
Yeah, one probably, like, I know that some social medias, you can also like, schedule the post in advance, that maybe you take the snap, but then, you time that if you kind of like 24 hours later, you have like change of mind, it's not published yet, you can just like cancel it in the queue. But well, that's great insight. Now, maybe one of the insights that it's still like exciting for our listeners today, that, okay, they have put together the team, they have been doing already some years of progress, and they have the first prototype. Maybe this has already been in the first pilot. But I think, as you have seen so many different digital health startups, maybe you have like some words of wisdom for those founders that now want to kind of scale it up, because like what is the thing you have seen in Europe that really like works, that there is this great gadget or there is a great digital health tool, but how on earth you can only, I mean, get beyond the network, you know, maybe in one clinic or hospital, that it would really like growing that, let's say, all EU member states and even beyond Europe, they would use your great innovation or whatever digital health app it might be. So what you have seen from your work analyzing all those companies developing those things that maybe could be also useful for our EIT Health alumni listeners?
I could summarize these observations into 3 points. The first is that when a startup starts with a patient or clinical need and develop a technology for that usually works. But when they start with developing a technology and then look for a patient or clinical need, that almost never works in my experience. The second is we are talking about healthcare, and in healthcare, the rule of evidence-based medicine applies. So even if you develop the world's absolutely best, most innovative technology that will save millions of patients' lives, but you can put enough evidence behind that through peer-reviewed papers and studies, literally no one is able to use that technology in the practice of medicine and delivery of healthcare. That's how healthcare works. We stick to the evidence-based approach. And the best examples I've seen, it's actually not from Europe, but the way like the developer of the ECG device, Cardia, has been taking part in publishing about 60 plus scientific studies. That's the kind of effort I would love to see from European health startups too, to put enough evidence behind what they claim their technology can do. And the third is simply transparent communication. It's not just PR. It's more like being in touch with followers and supporters and those who would use the technology at the end of the day. And through my transparent communication, I mean managing social media channels through which it's easy to contact them. They are responsive. They share all the important things about the company, but not in a dry way, just putting out stuff for PR purposes, like press releases. I'm 36 years old. I don't understand at all the point of press releases, why it still exists. What's the point of a press release and embargoing news? It just doesn't make any sense to me. But when I see a company transparently communicating, putting a real life person in front of the startup itself, so you're not talking to a company, you're talking to someone at the company, that always feels right, that this company might be reliable enough to enter the market.
Awesome. So need first before technology. So there has to be patient need, then the rule of evidence, and then communicate transparently. I think this is great trio. Just maybe one last tip regarding that communication, because I've been attending bunch of health tech events, and I think even though like some of the founders, they like to communicate, sometimes you listen to a 5-minute pitch and then you still don't understand like what on earth they are doing. So I know that you have been like working on improving that communication. Do you have also some kind of like good suggestion, maybe book to read or some other tip that if we have like medical professionals listening to us today who, probably professionally are used to talk maybe even in Latin, writing those case stories, but to kind of really reach out those potential patients in their layman language, is there some kind of like good trick to get the doctors or those founders to speak in a way that actually people would understand them?
It's a very important question, and I think my answer might be a bit weird to the audience, but first of all, let's say out loud that the job of founders is especially hard and stressful, and they have a lot of pressure to deal with. They have to prove themselves. They might have a 5 minutes long pitch. I don't even take speaker invitations when I have less than 15 minutes because I cannot even tell a story in a short amount of them. It's understandable that they find it hard to communicate well enough what they have in mind. But the reason why I think my answer is going to be weird is that I wouldn't suggest reading like the 50-second how to give a good presentation book or anything like it. But there is one book that I found particularly interesting and useful. It's called Chatter. it was written by a psychologist, and it's about managing your inner voice. Because what I come across, or what I find is usually is that founders have an inner voice in their head that bring them to the brink of failure, that give them so much pressure that what comes out at the end of the day as a product, that their pitch or their presentation is just not working, because that I think that inner voice made such a big impact on what they had to say. But if you learn how to manage your inner voice, how to use it like a resource and not how to use it like a resource of threats and dangers and risks, but you still get these threats because that's how evolutionarily we work. Our brains are hardwired, and it's very important that your inner voice keeps on telling you what kind of bad things could happen to you. But it's about your decision whether you allow those threats and dangers to swim in your brain all the time and dominate the way you communicate about your thoughts. So if you have this under control, then I think immediately you can more clearly describe what you had in mind. Plus, if you deal with your inner voice, you also learn about, the book actually describes a self-distancing technique, which means I feel like I'm in trouble. I see a threat or a danger in my professional job, for example. But through the method of self-distancing, I can learn how to look at myself from a third-person perspective, and how I could analyze my situation from that third-person perspective. And the more you're able to do that, the better you could orientate yourself as one of the audience members before even your talk begins. And if you are one of the audience members, then you will better understand what kind of needs the audience members have, what kind of expectations they might have about your pitch, and all those details that you cannot know because you're not in the audience, you're one of the speakers. But this way, it's actually, I think it's about empathy, but this way you can learn about how the audience could empathize, if that's the right word, with the speaker. Thus, you could even, keep on fine-tuning the content you had in mind.
That's an awesome suggestion. Thank you so much, Bertalan, for this. I think now the bit longer evenings, what we are having, working towards the winter, having that great book chapter, would be a good companion for like extra cups of tea or coffee that people are having, besides the one that we are soon finishing up in this session.
You keep referring to the long winter as like something very bad is coming to us. I understand the baseball season will be over in about 2 weeks, and then we don't have baseball until March. That's going to be a long winter, but for that purpose only.
Well, I mean, it's yeah. Otherwise, maybe people are doing like some sports outside. Actually, but I think with the climate change we have seen in Europe, it's like. I remember when I was a kid, it was like, those bright winter days, nice and snow. You could like go out skiing. It was like fun. But like now it's what we mostly have is some kind of like gray weather, sleet and rain, which kind of more keeps people inside. And having a good cup of tea and great book to read, detoxing yourself from all those gadgets sounds like a great way of spending an evening or a weekend.
That sounds like something to look forward to. I do.
Yeah. And before we wrap up, it was very nice to get all those tips and insights from you. Maybe one last tip would be to those that how like now maybe have started the last year in the medical school and or master's program in health or whatever program, and it's the last year where probably in spring they have to decide either to become a doctor or start their own venture. You mentioned previously that if some innovations people want to do, there should be a need first before technology. So definitely they maybe have to look out for a need, but maybe some good tips for those or having those, let's say, last I don't know how many months it's in until June graduations, like last 9 months ahead, that what they should kind of like consider, and would you recommend people to jump into the new health techs you have seen popping up across Europe, especially now with the pandemic, or would more recommend these listeners to go and join the classical medical force?
I always find it hard to provide such career advice to anyone because I've been on such an unusual journey myself.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm a romantic kind of guy, and I do believe in the idea that we have a calling, and my calling has been to dedicate my life to research. It's just one, maybe a side point, that it's not life science but futuristic studies. And still, I mean, in 15 years or 20 years, anything can change for me too. But I have no doubts that my calling has been around dedicating my life to doing research and doing science. I wouldn't jump into health tech if I were any of those students just because that sector looks amazing, or maybe even financially calling. If they don't like what they see there, if they don't think that they could enjoy actually doing that kind of job, then what's the point of switching or choosing that career option? So I would look for those situations in life where I would feel that I could contribute to society. I mean, it's just, of course, my own calling, but at the end of the day, that's what I want to do. I want to contribute to improving the world for everyone and to create a better. I know it's romantic, but that's literally how the basis of my Maslow pyramid is structured. That I believe in the idea that, or the power of that idea, that I want to contribute to society. But then I have to find out how I could do that in the most efficient way that I also enjoy. Because if I don't enjoy that, it's, well, I won't be able to do that for long enough. And I'm 36, but I'm shooting here for at least 100 years, boarding a spaceship to Mars at the age of 100 on my legs. I mean, it can be an exoskeleton supporting me, but not on a bed, but on a leg, on my legs, boarding the spaceship myself. I would try to look for that calling. I would definitely, if I were them, I would definitely look into the tech sector just to see how that works. I would definitely try to get some skills around digital literacy. And I would definitely look into AI and automation, just the basics of what that technology can do to our professions. Because even if they choose a medical specialty, by the time they actually start practicing medicine in that specialty, AI will play quite an important role in it. And if they don't see it clear enough now, then maybe the career path they choose today will not be the one they will see in practice 5-10 years from now. And at the end, that's why it makes sense to play with the what if question. I do that almost every day. I play with the what if question. What if this technology could have an amazing influence on my future job? What if that technology could create a nightmare, an ethical nightmare scene for patients? Just playing with the what if question, I think it gradually prepares us for whatever is coming next. And of course, the easiest way of doing that is by reading and watching science fiction.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Bertalan, for this guidance, and maybe to read. I know that you are writing a lot. What is the best way our audience can follow you? Like, should they go to your website or subscribe? I'm subscribed to your LinkedIn newsletter, for example. What is the best way to follow and see your research if they haven't subscribed yet?
If they go to medicalfuturist.com, they will find literally everything. All the social media channels we are active on, all the scientific papers we have published, all the YouTube channel that we have, the newsletters that we have, everything is for free, of course, on the site. But medicalfuturist.com could be the best site to start with.
Thank you so much, Bertalan. And yeah, as Bertalan just said, so if you all want to know and be up to date with the latest digital health and medical future news, just go to medicalfuturist.com and subscribe, and you can get instant notification where the new content is published by Bertalan and his team. If you're also interested in getting support in your what if questions and building that contribution to the society using EIT Health, you can check out the support mechanisms of EIT Health at eithealth.eu and subscribe. If you have already participated in the EIT program but you're not yet alumni, you can go to alumni.eithealth.eu and subscribe there to get the latest events and updates, like this one, this cake session with Bertalan and all the other upcoming events. And if you like this episode of our podcast, hit a like button or adjust the stars wherever you are listening us today. But thank you so much again, Bertalan, for joining us today. And we are looking forward to welcoming you another EIT and EIT Health Alumni event also in the future.
Thank you very much, Timo, for having me. I really enjoyed the discussion.